Where Five Winds Meet. As the temple hove into sight, all of Sembagun's worries came surging back to the fore. She'd had reservations from the start, and the brief visit to the great burial mound that had apparently once been a fortress had crystallized them a little. These people were warlike, unforgiving, quick to anger, dangerous. Her uncle Tina had told her horror stories as a child, of how they had no understanding of justice, and so were ultimately unpredictable, untrustworthy creatures of chaos. As she grew older, as she experienced the wider world, Sembagun had learned to see her uncle for the frightened, small-minded man he had always been. But his stories stuck with her, and during this trip she had seen time and again how Imperials could be incredibly rude without seemingly realizing it, or take offense at the slightest thing. The story of Fort Braden had given her nightmares, of a performance that ended with war and the complete destruction of her family home by raging, implacable Imperial warriors, who then went on to rampage through the court of the Five Winds. She tried to express some of her anxiety to Ma Juni, who listened attentively and nodded along a little. "It's good to be nervous," she said when Sembagun had finished unburdening herself. "These people are chaotic and undisciplined. They do have no understanding of justice. But there's more to them than that. They're unruly, but I've never met another people so enthusiastic about music you can dance to, or music you can sing along with, or music that moves you. But still..." Sembagun was not convinced. "This is a temple we're going to, Ma Juni. You said it yourself, there will be priests here, and they will try to convert us and make us afraid of our neighbours, or tell us we should abandon the bonds of family in pursuit of selfishness, or I don't know, whatever it is they think is wise." Ma Juni laid a hand on her companion's arm to stop her, and took hold of both her shoulders. "Sembagun, trust me," she said emphatically, staring into the other woman's eyes. "When have I ever steered you wrong? We are going to a place run by Soutenir, and they are not the Imperial priests you have nightmares about. Nothing like them. They love music and passion just as much as we do, from a people that loves such things. I heard tell the Brass Coast was founded by 3 proud women who chose to flee from a place that tried to crush their spirits and force them to wear shrouds, and that they flew across the ocean as burning falcons to create a new country where people could be free to sing and dance. We shouldn't fear such people, not unless they give us a good reason to. Be brave, most beloved. When you sing and I play, they will listen, and they will enjoy it, and then we will listen to their songs and enjoy them, and we will take some of that joy back with us and play those new songs." She smiled at Sembagun then. "And I know at least 3 houses who will pay us a lot of money to hear the music of the Empire. And you know how much I like money." Sembagun laughed, just a little unsteadily, and took a deep breath. After another few moments she nodded, and they broke apart. While her doubts were not entirely assuaged, her worries no longer threatened to overwhelm her. "That said," said Ma Juni after several minutes of rumination, "it might be a good idea to avoid singing any of the songs that touch on Jan or the flames of the sun. It turns out that even the happy-go-lucky freeborn have strong views on the virtue of setting half your family on fire. But otherwise I'm sure it will be fine." Faradin. Status: foreigner. Ports: Kaitun. Ambassador: Ebenezer of the Marches. Overview. Faradin is a country of canny merchants and wizards, proud warriors and heretical priests. The lifeblood of their nation is trade, however, with anyone who will accept their caravans, who almost follow the way, but not quite. They have no shared border with the Empire. The lands of the Jotun lie between them, and their people are known to view the sea with a kind of superstitious dread that has prevented them engaging in much maritime trade, a major disadvantage for a nation such as theirs. Relations between the Empire and Faradin vary from year to year, warm one moment, cool the next, but it has never come to open warfare. The Faradin ambassador to the Empire is Mistress Singua Karadraga, a relatively recent appointment, who replaced the former incumbent, Lady Saretta of the Red Moon, at the insistence of the Liege of the Five Winds. Following their assumption of the position in a relatively bloodless coup, Mistress Singua advises the Court of the Five Winds on all diplomatic matters, and speaks on their behalf to foreign ambassadors. Her attitude to the Empire appears to be cool but professional, and heavily informed by the wishes of the Liege and their court, who seek more opportunities to trade with the Empire. The warship in the room. The recent Asavean attack on Mead originated in Faradin waters. The ambassador is responsible for talking to Farad'n about their involvement in the attack. Following the summer solstice, a trio of Asavean warships launched a surprise attack against the city of Mead in the Marches. The attack was repulsed, thanks to the timely warning provided by orders captured in battle by Imperial heroes. The Drakes and a number of independent captains sank one of the attacking ships and significantly damaged another. It's clear, though, that the warships came down the gullet and into the Westmere from Farad'n lands, and it's an open secret that the Asaveans are attempting to gain a political foothold there. They have been wooing a number of anti-imperial factions in the Court of the Five Winds, most notably the family of High Lady Togeni Altsenig of Tujahan. If the situation were reversed, it is certain that Mistress Cadraga would be expressing the outrage of the Court of Five Winds and demanding apologies and reparations. The ambassador represents the Empire, so it is up to them to respond to this delicate situation. No Farad'n took part in the raid on Mead. Their action may have been supported by High Lady Togeni and her peers, but the Asaveans acted alone. The ambassador could certainly demand reparations, or call for punitive action, but may need to choose their words carefully. For centuries, the Imperial Synod and the priests of Farad'n have been in conflict over the nature of the malign spiritual presence of vengeance, what the Farad'n called justice. Too impassioned a response from the Empire might risk undermining the claim that the Empire denies vengeance. On the other hand, ignoring the involvement of Farad'n citizens in the attack will appear weak. At the very least, citizens of Menandram will be aware that the warships gathered in Farad'n waters before they launched their assault. Ignoring the matter risks lending credence to claims that Farad'n might be better off siding with Asavea. If the Empire will not protect its own territory from Asavean raids, they would certainly not side with Farad'n if the Liege of the Five Winds were to disavow Asavea. A fine line for the ambassador to walk, indeed. The Asavean problem. Asavean agents are active in Farad'n. The Liege of Five Winds gained their position largely on the understanding that they would secure the prosperity of the nation. They sought closer ties with the Empire, but their motivation grounded in economic considerations, rather than any particular affection for imperial citizens. Trade with our largest neighbour represents the greatest opportunity for prosperity. However, the Asaveans are also a large and powerful nation, even if they are far away to the west. They have intervened militarily to aid the Grendel, and now the effects of their diplomatic efforts can be seen in Farad'n. Nobles, from several families, question whether the nation might not be better off allying with Asavea, rather than continuing an arm's-reach relationship with the Empire. A larger and currently more credible voice suggests that despite all their aspirations and their pride, Farad'n cannot afford to take sides in a fight between powers such as Asavea and the Empire. They cannot afford to make enemies of Asavea, because on their own they will ultimately be defeated, or worse. Gather information roles. The Shuttered Lantern or the Celestial Arch could become involved in Farad'n. The Master of the Regario dossier might also become involved. As with the recent worrying developments in Axos, part of the problem is the Empire's limited intelligence on what is actually going on in Farad'n. As with their eastern neighbours, there were ways to learn more about the Asavean threat. In the wake of the attack on Mead, there is sufficient interest in the situation in Farad'n that the magicians of two conclave orders may offer assistance in investigating the situation. The Shuttered Lantern excel at gathering information through magical means. As well as directly investigating, they make good use of divination magic to wheedle out secrets and uncover evidence of wrongdoing. The Grand Master could use a declaration of concord to commit their order to an investigation of Asavean activity in Farad'n. They would prepare a report or provide opportunities relating to Asavean espionage and skullduggery at the winter solstice. Alternatively, the Celestial Arch could use the ties they have cultivated with the Chimetzi family to investigate the matter, with particular reference to the nation's wizards. The Arch has different areas of expertise to the Lantern, and any report or opportunity they present would be more focused around the attitudes and involvement of Farad'n nobility than the Asavean interlopers. As with all efforts to guide an order, the declaration would need to be made by the order itself, and be supported by the Imperial Conclave, with a cost of 20 mana drawn from the font. Any report made by an order would eventually become a matter of public knowledge for any Imperial citizen who cared to learn more. One order operating alone will not attract much attention. If the Conclave were to send both orders, then while their approaches would be complementary, focusing on different aspects of the situation, the sudden influx of Imperial wizards would make the Farad'n aware that something is going on. and would also mean the Asaveans become aware that the Empire was actively seeking out their involvement in the smaller nation. There is also an opportunity for the Master of the Rogario dossier to use their assets in Farad'n to investigate the situation. They could instruct civil servants to have Agent Alafan and their network investigate this situation. Based at the Court of Five Winds in Farad'n, Agent Alafan is in a position to assess Asavean involvement in the nation and deliver a private report to the holder of the dossier. Doing so would be risky. The Rogario dossier agents would be up against agents not only of Farad'n, but also the wily agents of the Asavean Republic. An additional cost of 11 thrones would be incurred for this activity, and would need to be paid by the holder of the Rogario dossier, who is currently Laszlo Gulyas von Temeshwar of the Guild of Drovers. They would deliver a concise report at the winter solstice, identifying some of the major players in both Farad'n and Asavea. Their report would not automatically become public knowledge. The risk is that the Asaveans are very old hands at international diplomacy and espionage. The civil service prognosticate that it would be impossible for Agent Alafan to avoid attracting at least some attention from Asavean agents at large in Farad'n. While they wouldn't automatically identify Alafan or their network, they would know that the Empire was actively pursuing mundane espionage in the nation. OOC note: if the Master of the Rogario dossier wishes to take advantage of this opportunity, they would need to ensure the 11 thrones are in their inventory and email Plot after the event before the close of downtime to let them know they are asking Agent Alafan to put together an emergency report. Limitations: the opportunities for the Shuttered Lantern, Celestial Arch, and the Master of the Rogario dossier all arise from collective outrage around the recent attack on Mead. As a consequence, they are only available during the autumn equinox. Too high a price. The price to purchase Imperial Wains is judged too high by Farad'n merchants. Ambassador Ebenezer expresses concerns about the value of the Gloaming Road. During the summer solstice, Mistress Karadraga responded to inquiries about the possibility of selling Imperial Wains in Farad'n. To the surprise of nobody, least of all the Farad'n, Ambassador Ebenezer regretfully rejected the resulting offers as being far too low. Their counteroffer, 36 crowns per wain of weirwood, the same for white granite or mithril, has been presented to the Court of Five Winds by Mistress Karadraga, but she expects little to come of it. At easily twice the opening offer from the Farad'n merchants, it is clear that Imperial Wains are simply too expensive at this time. A wonder, she remarks dryly, that the ambassador considers the Gloaming Road to be such a poor proposition, although she notes that there are clearly Imperial citizens who take a slightly different view of the profitability of trade with Farad'n. Ambassador Ebenezer has expressed concerns that, due to hostile forces, the route into the Brass Coast via the Lassambrian Hills is no longer profitable, and shared fears that the position won't be continued after the current incumbent. They invited the Farad'n to consider whether there might be a way to make the route more lucrative to offset the maintenance costs. The merchants involved, after some discussion, have declined to change their prices. Even though demand has declined, they are still securing significant amounts of the valuable iridescent gloaming in return for their mithril, and even with the steep tariffs charged by the Jotun, the route remains profitable for them. Reading between the lines, they are waiting to see if the ambassador is correct, and nobody in the Empire wishes to trade gloaming for mithril via the Gloaming Road. Speaking somewhat informally, however, Singwa makes reference to the fact that it would be much cheaper to transport the mithril to a port such as Kaitun, and sell it to Imperial merchants there, instead of trekking a caravan through Jotun lands. Unfortunately, she concludes, some merchant families are very traditional and view anything to do with sea trade with great suspicion. Whatever happens with the Gloaming Road, she doubts it will have any lasting diplomatic repercussions, given how much more profitable the mithril market at Kaitun is in comparison. Mistress Karadraga will observe developments with interest. High Lord of the Rain. The Chemetzi family are still keen to purchase Imperial weirwood. They have raised their offer, but it still falls short of the ambassador's benchmark. They have proposed an alternative trade involving a ritual text. Particularly interested in purchasing materials from the Empire was High Lord Mukali Chemetzi of Menendram and Patriarch of the Imperial Inclined Chemetzi family. They were interested in acquiring 25 wains of weirwood to improve farms across their territory, but only able to offer 50 thrones for the valuable wains. Mistress Singwa has informed the High Lord of the ambassador's counteroffer that the purchase price for Imperial wains would be 36 crowns each, and after some discussion, Mukali is prepared to go as high as 70 thrones, but cannot exceed that amount at this time. They are also prepared to collect the wains from the Empire and transport them back to Pelabuhan. Indeed, High Lord Chimetzi's daughter, Melune Chimetzi, has pledged to travel by sea to get the wains and arrange their delivery to Farad'n, something that has caused more than a little scandal among more traditional nobles. High Lord Chimetzi clearly does not expect imperial merchants to be able to fulfill his requirements at the price he offers. After extensive discussion with members of his family and consultation with their eternal patron, Mukali has a third offer. The Chimetzi will provide the imperial citizen who delivers the wains they want with a copy of one of their prized ritual texts. Farad'n wizard families hoard their magical knowledge closely, and it speaks to the importance of the trade that High Lord Chimetzi is prepared to countenance it. There are 3 rituals that the Chimetzi are prepared to provide, each part of the lore of spring magic. Golden Wellspring, a ritual that provides ambergelt to Lord Rain in return for warm honey. Waters of Bounteous Prosperity, a ritual that uses the power of Lord Rain to enchant a farm so that it produces 10 measures of herbs in addition to its normal production. Or Streams of Verdancy, a ritual that enchants a herb garden with the assistance of Lord Rain so that it provides an additional 10 drams of both true vervain and blade root in the coming season. Each ritual has an assurance, but from his discussions with the Celestial Arch, High Lord Mukali believes the Empire will find it easy to avoid breaking them. The Chimetzi are currently hoping to trade 1 ritual text for the 25 wains they want. This might prove very optimistic. On a personal note, Mistress Karadraga passes on High Lord Chimetzi's thanks to the ambassador for their generous offer to bring Marcher landskeepers to Belabuhan to help enchant their farms. The Chimetzi are proud wizards, more than capable of weaving potent enchantments where needed, and indeed their proficiency is the cornerstone of their prosperity. One reason they are seeking werewood is that they have reached the effective pinnacle of what they can achieve solely with magic, and are looking to increase their wealth further by enhancing their underlying farms. Regardless, the Chimetzi absolutely appreciate the offer, and High Lord Chimetzi says it speaks well of the ambassador that they made it. OOC note: any imperial citizen who wishes to take advantage of either offer can do so by ensuring the wains are in their inventory, and then emailing plot indicating they wish to make the trade. They should be clear which offer they wish to accept, the 75 thrones offer or the ritual text offer. In the latter case, they should specify which ritual text they want. Butterflies and boxes. The Blue Silk Scarf Guild is still eager to secure iridescent gloaming. They have made arrangements with the City of Golden Lead to try and secure imperial gloaming during the coming summit. The artisans of the Blue Silken Scarf are pleased to receive a shipment of iridescent gloaming from the ambassador. A guild of tailors, dressmakers and silk-weaving wizards, they are particularly interested in securing large amounts of iridescent gloaming, and even though the gloaming blight is no longer an issue, it can be challenging to acquire the material in Farad'n. However, even with Ambassador Ebenezer's shipment, they are still short of the amount they need for the coming year. They still want a further 100 iridescent gloaming. After a lengthy discussion with Mistress Karadraga, they are prepared to go as high as 18 rings a measure, or 2 crystal mana per 5 measures. As wizards themselves, however, they are well aware that transporting measures overland is not the only way to do business. During the autumn equinox, they have secured an arrangement with the Silent Market, a faction of traders in the City of Golden Lead. If the Ephesus Scale ritual is performed during the summit and the box contains only iridescent gloaming and a single piece of paper with a butterfly or moth drawn on it, they have instructed the brokers to secure the gloaming on their behalf. Should they be successful at reaching their goal of 100 iridescent gloaming during the equinox, it will demonstrate that they can do business with the Empire. On an unrelated and slightly more personal note, the mistress of the Blue Silken Scarf asks if Ambassador Ebenezer might make inquiries on her behalf as to whether the Mirrored Masheri specifically would be interested in either purchasing enchanted Farad'n clothing, or perhaps endorsing or somehow encouraging interest in Farad'n fashion. What kind of arrangement might be needed to secure such a thing? Music and laughter. In thanks for their rescue, Erdani Bataguan has spread news of the Azure Chorus and its fine musical venue to Farad'n performers. The Azure Soutenier receives a small amount of additional money while relations between the two nations remain good. If the Freeborn Assembly supports the Farad'n visitors, Erdani will design and oversee an expansion for the Azure Chorus. The Azure Soutenier is currently Mina I Yashum I Rayquaza. With the Lasambrian Jotun invasion of Karaman ending in defeat for the Orcs of the Western Hills, work has been completed on the project to secure the roads of that territory from raiders. The project incorporated a number of Farad'n camcrags, with construction being assisted by members of the Bataguan family. When a respected member of the family was kidnapped, the Azure Soutenier Mina I Yashun I Rayquaza stepped up to ensure their release. The Bataguan are not immensely wealthy, but they are well respected in Farad'n for their building prowess. Erdani Bataguan, the rescued architect, is particularly enthusiastic about singing the praises of the Azure Chorus, the beautiful temple in the foothills of the Gilded Peak. One of the unexpected consequences of this has been an increase in Farad'n visitors to the area. Not merchants, or not solely merchants, but musicians and other performers keen to explore the Brass Coast and the southwestern empire in general. Brightly coloured Farad'n tents and marquees now join those of imperial pilgrims, and there have been several well-attended performances in the natural amphitheatre below the temple. When it comes to matters of religion, out of deference to their hosts, these western pilgrims avoid conflict. They enthusiastically participate in discussions about the things they have in common with the followers of the Way, their respect for courage, loyalty, prosperity and pride, and avoid talking about the things that create division, ambition, wisdom, vigilance, and of course, justice. Like any imperial pilgrim, the Farad'n pay their hosts for their hospitality. As such, as long as the relations between the Empire and Farad'n do not deteriorate significantly, the Azure Soutenier receives additional benefits from their sinecure, amounting to a further 2 crowns each season. Erdani Bataguan, however, has a proposal of their own. They ask that the Freeborn National Assembly consider raising a statement of principle, welcoming Farad'n visitors to the Azure Chorus, encouraging pilgrims from both nations to come together in an appreciation of what connects them, rather than what separates them, and asking the Azure Soutenier to include the protection of travellers from the West as part of their responsibilities. If such a statement receives a greater majority, Erdani will work with the architects who designed the temple to design a beautiful parador to complement the temple, combining Farad'n and Freeborn design. The structure will increase the benefits provided to the Azure Soutenier, giving them a small income of Farad'n herbs and ingots of valuable metal. It will still need a Senate motion to allow the building to go ahead, and the Freeborn will need to source some of the materials themselves, but Erdani will oversee the project, meaning it would not impede the Senate's precious commission opportunities. Mistress Cara Draga also points out that, as long as everyone engages in good faith, establishing a place for imperial pilgrims to meet with Farad'n artists and the occasional merchant, this can only be good for relations between the two nations. Distant caravans. Farad'n is still keen to gain a trading enclave in the Empire, and has expressed interest in Holberg. There is interest in an imperial trading enclave in Kaitun. Mistress Cara Draga warns that an obstacle to closer trading ties is the threat of Asavean involvement. The Court of the Five Winds has been discussing the response to their inquiries about a replacement for Moonwater Hall. Ambassador Ebenezer has regretfully informed the Farad'n that there is no appetite for a trading enclave at this time. Mistress Cara Draga herself finds this unsurprising given what happened last time. However, in spite of the tariffs imposed by the Jotun, she is confident there is still appetite in Farad'n for trade with the Empire. The Liege of Five Winds has requested that she continue to pursue the matter, and as such she asks if there might be a location where Farad'n traders could congregate that would be less volatile. She has heard good things about the city of Holberg on the far side of the Empire, and is confident that Farad'n traders can do business with the guilds of the greatest city in the world. With the grand highways of the blood-red roads at their disposal, a Farad'n caravan entering the Empire in the west and travelling all the way to the eastern borders and back would certainly provide ample opportunities for trade with the League, the Marches, Wintermark and Highguard along the way. Would the sophisticated citizens of the League be open to an enclave there? Perhaps their priests could be consulted on the matter. Regardless, there is certainly interest in the idea of Moonwater Exchange in Kaitun. The Farad'n traditionally view trade by sea to be fraught with danger due to the nature of the Sea of Snows. Mistress Cara Draga candidly points out that once goods are paid for, what a Cambion whale does to a ship carrying them is of no concern to the vendor. However, at this time, the establishment of a true trading enclave in Kaitun is not something the Liege of Five Winds can countenance without offering similar opportunities to the Asavean plenum. There is a great deal of difference between being open for business and welcoming trading vessels, and establishing a trading enclave. There is significant concern that any such enclave would turn Kaitun into a target for Asavean raids. One reason the Court of the Five Winds encouraged the expansion of the docks was so that imperial traders and Asavean merchants docking in Ondersant would be kept separated. Even more imperial ships, while profitable, would likely lead to further conflict between imperial and Asavean ships in Farad'n waters. Laid against that, if the Empire were to offer a trading enclave in Holberg, it would be much easier for Mistress Cara Draga to reciprocate with an offer of an imperial trading enclave in Kaitun, providing everyone involved understood what that would mean. Nobody wants to pay tariffs to the Jotun, but likewise, nobody wants two great nations fighting each other in their streets. A delegation. Mistress Singwa Cara Draga is open to the idea of a delegation to visit the Empire. She requests an agenda for discussion so she can determine who best to send. If a delegation is sent to the Empire, a similar delegation will be sent to Asavea. Ambassador Ebenezer has invited his opposite number in Farad'n to a meeting, either in Kaitun or in some other location. After due consideration, Mistress Karadraga is prepared to send a small formal delegation to Anvil to meet the ambassador. Singo cannot come herself, due to the pressure of her role, but will send trusted representatives empowered to discuss matters on behalf of the Court of the Five Winds. She requests that as prelude to such a meeting, the ambassador provide her with a list of topics to be discussed so she can prepare her delegates appropriately. However, if she does send a formal delegation to Anvil, she will also have to accede to Asavean requests that a formal delegation be sent to Nemoria, likewise empowered to discuss matters of diplomacy, commerce, and a treaty. So far she has been able to delay requests for such a thing, by pointing out that if she did, she would have to give in to imperial entreaties for a formal meeting between nations. The civil service cautioned that what Mistress Karadraga appears to be intimating is that if she sends a delegation to the Empire, then the Asaveans will gain an opportunity to increase their influence in Farad'n. At the moment it is clear Singwa is attempting to stay as neutral as possible between the two great nations, but once formal negotiations begin, it will be challenging for Farad'n to retain that neutrality, especially if the outcome of negotiations with Asavea is more favourable.